I saw your high activity on the last video about murder drones, so here is part 2. Today we'll discuss the international dubs of the 2nd, 3rd and 4th episodes of Murder Drones. I watched German, Russian, Turkish, Indonesian, Korean, Ukrainian, Spanish and other dubs. It contains many exciting things. Let's start with the Korean dub. In the 2nd episode, there was a scene with a hologram of a robot. In this one, the Korean version has a blunder. In the original, the robot talks, but in Korean, he doesn't. Look at this.
Hello, Tim. Care to join me?
Now, in Indonesian, the sound effects of the hologram were much more substantial than in the original, so it was pretty creepy. It definitely fits the scene though.
Halo Tim, mau ikut aku?
As you probably remember, Uzi is anime fan. She mentioned it in the 1st episode, but Germans made her even a bigger fan and added an interesting reference to the Chainsaw Man.
Chainsaw hand time?
Yeah.
Es ist Denji-Zeit.
Kettensägen aktiviert.
I like this anime, and it was great to see this reference. Thanks for that, Germans. By the way, Germans really like replacing phrases and characters' names. For example, Uzi has a classmate named Braden, but in German his name was changed to Basti.
Uzi, give Braden back his sentience.
Uzi, gib Basti seinen Verstand zurück.
I'm not sure why they did this. The other characters' names were left the same. Well, maybe Basti sounds more familiar to them. Tell me why, Germans. Now let's move further. In my previous video about the 1st episode, I mentioned the Russian drone named Doll, but there are some problems with her in the German dub. In some scenes, Doll speaks Russian with a strong accent and grammatical mistakes. For example, she uses the wrong ending of the verb, which is used to indicate that the speaker is a boy, but she's a girl. So she said the phrase the way the boy had to say it. There's no such thing in English, but in Russian there is.
Mom, Pap, я вернулась. Mom, Dad, я вернулся.
The problem with German Doll is that most of her phrases are in German and not Russian. And in some scenes, she mixes German and Russian.
Мертвые. Я смотрела, как они умирали. Мертвые. Und ich habe dabei zugesehen.
That's pretty weird, since in other dubs she speaks Russian all the time. Well, maybe it was hard for Germans to find a Russian-speaking actress, I'm not sure. Now here's another detail. In the 4th episode, Rebecca called Uzi Hot Topic, but it was different in other dubs. In Russian, she called her emo. In Ukrainian, she called her an anime fan, which also suits Uzi.
Purple eyes. Hot topic.
Глаза фиолетовые. Еще.
Мозгови. Очи. Анимешный тяг.
In the 5th episode, there's a censorship of a swear word, but in German, this moment was softened.
Son of a... Come on. Du verdammter. Komm schon.
It's kinda cute how the villain calls the tools silly. Let's move on to another cool detail from the German dub. In the 3rd episode, Lizzie takes V's severed hand and Anne asks Lizzie if she will shake his hand with V's hand. And so the scene is funnier than in the original.
Where does this freaking go?
Thank you, Lizzie.
Was soll ich jetzt hier mitmachen?
Reichst du mir bitte die Hand?
In almost all dubs, not a single written text was voiced. However, in the 4th episode in the Ukrainian dub, the cockroach messages were voiced by a male. It's the same thing with the Hungarian dub, but here a female voiced the messages, which is probably better because it's Uzi talking. In the other dubs, there is no voice at all, and it's weird because this scene might be hard to understand for those who don't know English.
Привіт. Не кажи Ві, що я тут.
Szia! Nem mondd el Vének, hogy itt vagyok.
You probably remember that Mr. Dorman is called that way because of his work. However, his name sounds different in other versions. For example, in German, he is Mr. Doormaster. However, the problem is that the doors are called gates in the German dub, so they should have called him Mr. Gatemaster. Also, in the Russian dub, he is called Mr. Dorchenko. Now, in the 2nd episode, Thad hilariously addresses Anne. He calls him M&M's, so he refers to M&M's candy. While in the Russian dub, he simply asks what's up. In Turkish, he calls Anne his best friend. It's a little bit strange because they're not friends at all.
Of course, Zi.
M&M's? Без проблем, Зи. And чё как? Ne demek Zi? And kankim?
In my previous video, I said that Doll speaks Korean instead of Russian in the Korean version, but in the 3rd episode, she started speaking Russian, which is great. But why didn't she speak Russian in the 2nd episode?
Ванная по коридору налево.
죽었어. They do not pistol.
Well, in the same episode, there's a prom that V wants to visit to kill all the drones, and says that he will not let her commit prom murder. However, in the German dub, it got way harsher.
I'm not freeing you for prom murder, V. Ich befreie dich nicht für ein Ballmassaker, V.
Now, back to the Ukrainian dub. Uzi's classmate Sam sounds very drunk throughout the episode in this version. It might be hard for you to notice it, but for natives, it's quite noticeable. Let's discuss a more intriguing topic. As mentioned in my previous video, the international dubs of Murder Drones include many references to religion and the Bible. Most of the episode titles in the German dub are named entirely differently. For example, the third episode is called The Promening in the original, but in German it's Dance of the Angel. However, despite the biblical theme being seen in many dubs, some versions have removed references to Jesus. Look at this.
Jesus.
Ey, Entschuldigung.
Easy, Robo-Satan, not this mirror. Calma aí, olho bugado, esse espelho não.
Now, in the fifth episode, V called Uzi a little narc in the original, while in German, she simply called her a tick, which kinda softened the scene.
Little narc! Get out of my head! Du kleine Zecke! Verschwinde aus meinem Kopf!
In the fourth episode, when Uzi returns to her normal state, she remembers she ate other drones. During a dialogue with Anne, Uzi said that she eats people, but they're not people. Ukrainian translators noticed that and replaced people with robots. I find it more logical. The Ukrainians also changed it in some of the previous episodes.
You wanna tell me what's the matter?
No, don't look. I'm gross and eating people and stuff.
Поділися, що сталося.
Не дивись! Я бридка і їм роботів і все таке.
Let's move on. In the first episode, drones played a card game called Rummy. Rummy is not so popular in Russia, so it was replaced with a Russian card game called Durak, which means fool. By the way, it's a great game.
Hey, fellas! Ooh, deal me in, I love rummy.
Ей, парні! Я в ігрі обожаю дурака.
The German dub made some jokes even funnier than in the original. For example, look at this scene in the third episode.
V, you kinda suck.
Yeah, I'm not doing okay.
V, du bist ziemlich scheiße.
Ja, aber wenigstens mit Stolz.
Overall, each dub made many changes, but I highlighted the most interesting ones. I still like the German dub because of the cool references and jokes. Some other versions, such as Ukrainian and Russian, began to improve and corrected some mistakes they had in the first episode. If you want to see a video about the international dubs of the rest of the episodes of Murder Drones, hit the like button and leave your comments. See ya!